You're listening to Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G., a podcast that invites you to experience the world through the perspective of one black man, one conversation, one story, or even one rant at a time. Here's Dr. G.
Hey, everyone. This is Dr. Alex G, and I want to welcome you back to another exciting episode of Black Like Me with Dr. Alex G. Hey, I just want to say, first of all, I want to send a shout out to the One Human Family Unity Foundation. I appreciate their support. We're about 50 episodes in. They are our corporate sponsor, and I appreciate the fact that they helped us to launch this podcast and continue to support us. So kudos to those folks, and we appreciate you. I'm excited to see how people are listening to the podcast all over the world. Vietnam, for some very reason, unbeknownst to us, is catching it and downloading it. Costa Rica is one of our largest outside countries. I mentioned last week, Namibia is one of our top 4 or 5. I put a challenge out to the Seattle area. We did something called Black Love a few weeks ago, and I want to let the folks in Seattle know, in Emerald City, you're climbing up the ranks. You need to know that you're right on the heels, I think, of Chicago. I think you're the number 4 city. Oakland still got you outranked. And so Seattle, if you want me to come out there and do a show, I'm going to need you to listen to Black Love, to share the love, to share this podcast, because I'm trying to get to the Emerald City to do a show out there. But it looks like I'm going to be going to Oakland unless somebody gives me reason to go someplace else. You know, I enjoy talking to folks who are national, but also who are local, who are thinking nationally and globally. And I have one of those associates, one of those colleagues in the studio today. Mr. Henry Sanders is a Madison native. He is the publisher and CEO of an organization that's called Madison365. We're going to put a link in this podcast so that you can check out the great work that he's doing. For nearly 20 years, he's been a force for community development, economic development, entrepreneurship. We're going to talk a lot about that a little bit later. In Wisconsin, throughout the Midwest. He's worked for the city of Madison when Tammy Baldwin was a congresswoman before going to the Senate. He worked as a part of her team. He worked for the Greater Madison Chamber of Commerce as a vice president and helped to launch some real exciting initiatives like the Small Business Advisory Council, the Latino Chamber of Commerce, and the African American Black Business Association. Even before I got a chance to get to know him on a more personal level, I heard about his magnet program, which is the Madison Area Growth Network, and just a plethora of other things. He ran for lieutenant governor in 2010 and 2011. He joined the Obama administration as a small business administration for Region 5, and he served as an advocate for small businesses. And he's currently heading and spearheading a movement, an initiative that's called Selfless Ambition. So needless to say, this man is not a slacker. He's all over the place doing really, really good work. Henry, I'm really pleased that you're here in the Black Like Me podcast studios. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm black, but I'm not like you, bro.
Man.
So.
But there's still hope. We're going to pray for you. We're going to pray for you, man. My jaw got tired reading all those accolades, man. That's a lot. And these are the things that you've done. I mean, it's not like reading this off from someone who's on, another coast, another time zone. I've been in the community as you've done these things. And, man, we're blessed to have you here because you could have taken your talents to a lot of places. So I'm really appreciative that you're here. Yeah, amen. Listen, man, before we get into the interview, I've got a lot of, great questions to ask you. Mm-hmm. But I do something that's called Black Icebreakers. Okay. And so it's something that we do. I just have questions that I ask each of my black guests. Right. And so no, it's not a scoring system. We're not trying to measure your blackness or any of that stuff. No, we're not trying to do that. But it's just it's a fun thing to do. Grits or cream of wheat?
Grits.
Okay, all right. Butter and sugar or butter and salt?
Do people put sugar in grits?
Man, you're from Madison. You don't put salt. You put salt on your grits.
I put
salt and pepper.
Salt and pepper in the grits.
Okay, yeah, I'm a butter and sugar.
Really?
Guy. Oh man. Oh yeah. There's a whole movement. Where
do you get that from?
Breakfast. It's like eating it like a breakfast cereal.
Okay.
But
that's not a Southern thing. That must be a Madison thing.
That was my grandmother was out of Missouri, but we did that in Chicago. That's how they got us to eat it. But see, I was in my 40s before I realized people ate grits with shrimp and fish. Like I didn't know it as a savory dinner kind of thing. I only knew it as a breakfast cereal that was an alternative to oatmeal.
Okay, yeah, no.
You got to try it, man. Let your kids try it. They'll never be the same.
South, so my mom was from Alabama. My dad's from Mississippi. So
they might have put a little sugar in it. Ask your mom.
No,
you said no. Okay, I got you. Okay, let me just see. Collards or turnips?
What do I prefer?
What do you prefer?
Collard greens.
Collard greens.
Yeah.
How many of the Cosby kids can you name from the old Fat Albert? In 10 seconds.
From Fat Albert or the Cosby?
From Fat Albert.
Man, I can't even name any of them.
You can't.
What's the dude? I can see their faces though. What's the one that had like all the freckles on his face with the hat?
That was that Donald? That was Russell. That was Bill. That's Russell.
He stands out. Obviously, Fat Albert. Those are one I can remember.
There was Bill. There was Russell. There was Weird Harold.
Weird Harold. Yeah.
There was, and then remember the one that said, "Hey, but everybody."
What's his name?
Mushmouth.
Mushmouth. Man, they wouldn't play it on TV now. That was stereotypical.
They couldn't do that. That's right. But back in the 70s, we could do it. Did you ever have a Jerry curl?
Yes, man, I had a Jerry. Come on, I was Michael Jackson. I was trying to be Mike.
Oh my God, was it a good Jerry curl?
No, it wasn't good. It was a Madison Jerry curl. It was. But I thought.
Did your mom do it? Did your mama put that Jerry curl in?
No, my mama didn't know.
Because I know you didn't go to Ben's barbershop because they didn't do Jerry curls.
Nope.
You went to beauty
There was a guy
parlor.
in Northport. No, I'm a North Sider, so there was a guy in the North Side, getting Jerome, brother named Jerome.
And he put it in.
He did everyone's hair. He used to go there and sit in his little apartment for 2 hours, 3 hours, just doing my hair curl.
Did it burn bad?
It burned, bro. But I thought it looked good.
I bet you did.
I thought it looked good.
I bet you did. Hey, growing up, did you say pop or soda?
Soda.
Did you really? Okay. What day of the week does Soul Train come on?
Saturdays.
That's right.
Yeah.
Can you do the robot?
Yeah, what?
Oh, you doing? You put a little pop lock in it.
Yeah,
Okay. All right. Let me see. Hey, growing up, did you know anybody nicknamed Mookie, Junebug, John, Main? You had any friends or families with those kinds of nicknames?
Oh yeah, Junebug.
Junebug.
Yep.
Was that you?
No, I didn't have a Junebug nickname. I was simple. H-Town. Those are my nicknames. But yeah, I know a Junebug.
Okay. All right. Can you swim?
Yes, I can swim. You know why? Because my mama made me at an early age. She can't swim.
Because we're surrounded by these lakes, and she said, my son is not going to go out here and drown in Lake Mendota.
So I used to go to YWCA. My mom used to throw me in the pool, and I used to be with the only
She threw you in the pool?
I felt like she threw me in the pool. I was the only black guy there.
Miss Teresa, I'm going to have to do some fact checking on this because, ma'am, you do not look like a mother that would throw your son in the pool. But keep going. I'm sorry.
My mom would. Okay. All right. Now, my mama. So I had to go. Let me for the audience. My mother made sure that I went swimming to make sure that I could swim. But I felt like she was throwing me in the pool.
Growing up, did you ever tell your mother, I hate you, I wish you were dead, or get out of my room?
No, man. That'd been a death sentence in my house. I still won't tell my mom to get out of my house.
I'm telling you, and it's your house.
It's my house.
Hey, when you were growing up, did your family make toast in the broiler, in the oven? Because I know some folks, of course, do it in a toaster, but I grew up when people could put it in the broiler, at the bottom of the stove, and it gives it a whole different kind of vibe.
My family did, but my crew used to all the time. So I used to have a lot of people down in Vera Court.
And they would do...
Oh, yeah, put some cheese. We used to, yeah. Put some brown sugar on it or something.
Of course.
Yeah.
Man, yeah. We Lex used to have sleepovers. We would do it, and the kids would go home and try to make it, and the parents would say, what are you doing putting bread in the oven? So they would come over, and they had a thing called midnight toast. So you'd have a sleepover like 6 girls. Jackie and I would have to make toast at midnight for these girls. They lost their minds on broiler toast.
Yeah, I remember. You act like you sound like you black, bro.
Oh man, yeah. I am. I'm from the south side of Mass. You're from the yeah. Well, yeah, I know. We could read. Do you know what the term tender-headed means? When someone says, "Oh, he's tender-headed."
Yeah, like when you have hair, someone comb your hair and you're tender-headed, hurt their head. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's it. Eli, are white people tender-headed?
I was just going to tell you, I heard my mother-in-law say it the other day.
Did she really?
She said my wife was tender-headed when she was young. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Because she was combing.
Is your wife part black?
No. She's got red hair.
She's got red hair. Oh, well, that's a whole nother show.
Okay.
No. That's a whole.
Yeah, I haven't heard that in a minute.
I haven't heard that. Oh,
man. I'm a real black, bro. I'm surprised you got them black.
Oh, man.
You Google them?
No, listen, brother. No, brother. Listen.
Who you been talking to?
I've been living this, brother. Living this. Yeah. All right, I got you. What's Al Green's least favorite breakfast cereal?
Al Green. I don't know. Grits?
Why would you say grits?
I don't know.
Remember when his wife or girlfriend boiled them grits?
Oh, when she threw it on him? Was it grits?
It was grits.
Yeah.
Hey, are you old enough to remember Mikey on the Life cereal commercial? Let's get Mikey. Yeah, he'll eat it.
The little white boy.
Yeah, do you remember how he died? Do you remember there's a rumor about how Mikey from Life cereal died? There was a rumor that went around that, I don't know if all kids knew, but black kids used to say it, that he died eating Pop Rocks.
Oh, I remember people used to talk about Pop Rocks. You remember Pop Rocks?
I remember Pop Rocks.
And they said,
Yeah, you put them in your mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know your mom didn't let you eat those because they were dangerous. Henry, we can't let you do that. You might choke.
Come on, man.
No, my goodness. Let me see. Let me see if I got any more. I got any more.
Do that all the time.
You kiss your pet on the lips.
I don't have a pet.
Okay, so the answer to that is no. All right, let me just see. Do you use a washcloth?
Yes.
Okay, that's gonna become one of my new questions, because one of the things that brothers used to comment on, you start playing sports, you got to shower and stuff like.
There be no washcloth.
Yeah, like brothers be looking for the washcloths,
Right.
but the white guys
They didn't.
They didn't.
They have hair and stuff on like So I played sports, right? So I went through that.
That was a big discussion. Like I remember, like, man, they don't use washcloths. Now I know I'm going to get a lot of mail. I'm going to get some white folks saying that's racist. We use washcloths. Yeah. Man, that's good. No,
It's culture. It's not racist.
it is
It's culture.
Man, no, but people come, say this kinds of stuff. It's fun. So, man, thank you for that. I like breaking ice by asking them.
That was great
those
questions,
fun,
bro. Hey, thank you, Sister Lolita, for giving him those questions.
Yeah, I got you, man. Got you.
Someone gave you them.
They gave me those questions.
Someone
Yeah,
gave you
it might be
questions.
my undergraduate degree from the University of Wisconsin-Madison in African American
Doubt it.
history.
Doubt it.
Might be some of that stuff.
wouldn't-
And where I lived and
I
where
wouldn't brag-
and where
I wouldn't
and
brag
where
about
grad.
going to UW-Madison and your African American degree.
Well, you know what? It set me up for life. I'm doing pretty well with it, and you don't really want to go into the blackness. You don't want us to really.
Look, hey, I went to
So
Whitewater.
listen. You went to White. Okay, yeah. No, hey, enough. Yeah.
That's where our black folks went.
Oh man. So listen, let me ask you this. This show is not about ascertaining my blackness. My show is called Black Like Me. So that's been established. that's been established, young man. So listen, let me ask you some questions. What was your first job growing up? I love, when I read about you, you believe you really your areas of focus seems to be advocacy and empowerment and really entrepreneurship. So I want to ask you some broad questions around that. But I'm curious with you. I never heard you talk about what your first job was.
That's a good question.
As a kid, I'm talking about like in childhood.
As a kid, what my first job, I think I was 13, and my mom used to work for the county. And so there was a county program for kids, juvenile kids who were having trouble. Dane County, like kids who were in Hubert, basically. And my mom, those kids used to go out and like do jobs in weeds, go out and pick up in lakes. My mama told me that's what your job's going to be. And I did that. That was my first job. I did that it felt like forever.
Was she trying to give you a message that this is, one, it's hard work, but this is what happens to folks if they get in trouble?
I think it was all of the above. One, it was hard work.
Yeah.
Two, she wanted me to say, because, some of these people were my friends who I knew. I think she was showing a message of serving and that you are not better than anyone else and you work and do what they do. So that was my first job. It was a hard job. It was a hard job.
Right. I mean, I would see the kids outside, cleaning up along the highway or picking up parks and stuff. And it's hot and humid and you want to play, and kids were doing it. That was actually a good call, man. What did you aspire to become when you were a kid?
That's a good question. No one's ever asked me that, actually. Here's my biggest downfall growing up is I didn't have a vision for what I wanted to be when I grew up.
That's surprising to me.
So I didn't. I really didn't. So I was really good at sports. So I
and you were a boxer too, right?
Boxer later in life. In young, I was football, basketball.
Okay.
I was really, really good at those sports. And so I didn't see anything past high school. So when I grew up on the north side, it was on my downfalls actually. So there's a Warner Park on the north side, and we used to go down there and walk from like the Vera Court, Northport area, School Road area. We used to walk down to watch the football games, right? So all the girls were at football. That was my alpha and omega. That's all.
That's what you wanted to do.
That was it. I couldn't see past high school being a star at East and trying to chase girls. That was my.
Really?
That was it.
So, I mean, with your experience in government and politics, you weren't what am I trying to say? Political science junkie or any of the sort of the pre-law track or any of that?
Nothing, man. I graduated high school with a 1.8.
What?
Yeah. So that was not.
No. Because your mom and dad are professionals. Isn't your father an attorney?
He is an attorney.
And you got a 1.8 in high school and lived to talk about it.
Well, I barely.
Because I know your parents, and they don't play when they plan.
I barely lived, and I lived because I was good at sports, and so that got me past.
With your parents or the school?
The school, and yeah, I was just a jock. I was a jock. I didn't really know my parents. They both went to college, but they never talked to me about college. So
That's interesting because they just assumed you were going to do
They
it.
just assumed. And I think, my dad, he was the first to go to college from his family. So he just jumped into college. So he just went and he jumped in. Like, he just did it. So, I think that's a generational aspect, is that my parents never talked to me about college. And so only time we talked about college was around sports or girls, to be honest. So that I didn't look past it through that.
So then your inspiration, or folks who inspired you were athletic figures then?
Who inspired me was Ali. I mean, I remember like in second grade, my dad bought a little boxing bag. It was like a float like a butterfly, still like the beyond the greatest Muhammad Ali. And I loved that saying. And I remember the first speech I ever did in school was about Muhammad Ali.
Was it really?
Yep. Because I loved how confident he was, but he was saying I'm black and I'm beautiful. Like, I remember that standing out to me, that I'm black and I'm beautiful. So being one of the few black kids on the north side, right? And so you're hearing this guy saying he's black and he's beautiful and he's dominating. I loved it. I connected to it.
So you didn't know any folks who boxed locally? Like, your dad was not a boxing hobbyist. Mm-mm. So you really were inspired by Muhammad Ali.
Yep. Ali. So, and I didn't box it later.
Right.
I was just good. So when, I don't know, you Southsiders probably didn't do this. You could probably get each other flowers.
Yeah, we were at the library. But tell me what you were doing.
You probably were at the library. Yeah. That's probably true.
That's probably true. We graduated with more than a 1 point.
That's right. You guys,
but keep going.
You guys probably
we loved y'all. We got to stick together.
Percy graduated like 1.7, so I'm just saying.
You just put Percy out there like that.
He says it all the time. I love P. So, for me, I think we used to slap box all the time when you're younger, and with our hands. You always used to slap. Do you know what slap boxing is?
Yes, I know what slap boxing is. Yeah.
That's one of your black questions.
Is that really one of the right questions?
It should be a question.
Definitely. I knew how to write term papers also, and I was pretty good at Spanish.
I believe that, bro. I'm not down your bougie credentials.
Okay, all right, got you.
And so, I think that, I mean, I was always into sports and physical, and always fighting and stuff.
You used to fight?
All the time. We used to mostly fight around race, though. So, again, I was one of the few black kids on the north side. So I used to fight white guys all the time, usually white older guys.
So call your names? Yeah,
they always called your names until you can get old enough to, or to the, it was too even. But I remember the first day I walked, David Hart.
Mm-hmm.
So his mom used to
you two grew up together?
Yeah. But he went to Lindbergh, so I went to Mendota. And so I had to walk to his house, maybe 5 miles, right? So I'm, old school. My mama, kindergarten, first grade. Boy, you get out there, you don't stop at anyone's house, you walk.
Right.
So the first day I walked all the way over to Lindbergh, to David Hart's house, and I walked past Lindbergh, and these 2 white boys came outside and called me every name in the book, and I fought like for a good month every day just to get to my babysitter's house. True story.
Yeah. Sometimes we act like these incidents are just happening in Madison, like they're brand new. But you and I, having grown up here, know that stuff was happening
all the time.
30, 40 years ago.
Yeah, all the time.
And you're from here. So often we talk about these experiences, for folks who are new to Madison, who aren't used to the community, the rigor of the school system. We put it on outsiders. But folks who are born, bred, branded here had these kinds of experiences growing up.
Especially we had people on the north side driving by trying to stick their dogs on us, driving by. I mean, it was real.
Man. You might have answered this, but finish this sentence. As a high school senior, I was considered to be most likely to
play sports.
Got you. What was your first entrepreneurial move? Particularly in childhood, like something you can look back at and think, you know what, I think I was acting entrepreneurially. Like, for example, I delivered papers as a kid. Mm-hmm. You have to collect the money and pay for it. I think that's where some of those juices started with me, but I'm curious, did it start?
I think people think that it didn't start until older. I've always been a problem solver, so I've always been so a lot of people go in entrepreneurship for money, think of the money, how to do it. Like Diddy, you hear Diddy talking about it's the money. That's never been my motivation. It's always been how to solve problems. So I've always been the guy who would, jump in for confrontation. I was never scared of confrontation.
Sure. And
I would always try to solve problems. And so I don't know if there was any time that I actually said, hey, this is the time I'm going to do something entrepreneurial. I never, that happened later in life.
So you didn't have a lemonade stand, you didn't mow lawns for your neighbors, you didn't shovel sidewalks?
I always thought that was corny.
Really? I mean, I did all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm. I always thought that was corny at that age.
Man, I used to get off the bus in high school and go cash my check at Cole's food truck, because you could get a check cashing card, because I had a job at Andy's. Remember A&W was on Park Street where Dave's is?
Yeah.
They hired me when I was 14. So, man, as a kid, I had money. I delivered papers for Cap Times when I was 13, and I had my own checking account. So I would order pizza, and the Rocky Rococo delivery guy would be 18 and 19, would come to my door, and I'd write out a check.
That's amazing.
But I always, some reason that, or in showing my age a little bit, but in comic books, in the back of them, you used to be able to cut out a little form so you can get, you can sell stuff. Like you could buy seeds for gardens or small electronics.
Yeah.
I used to order boxes of greeting cards, used to sell it and make money. Like I always used to try that business stuff when I was a kid.
Man, it's amazing. Some people have that, right? That's amazing. I never, man. I wish I could tell younger me.
Sure.
To say, hey, start getting into. And even when I was younger, when you used to take tests about what your strengths are, whatever.
Right.
Mine always was business. Like you should be in business always. Even middle school, we had one. I said,
"You're right."
But it never connected to me.
I wish someone nurtured it,
Yeah.
you know, inside me, because I did those things, but I was always the person trying to do something that was, you know, coloring outside the lines. But it taught me, you know, it taught me drive. And I haven't talked about the comic book thing in a long time, but yeah, they would send you greeting cards for free. Wow. You'd sell them and then send them the proceeds. They don't do that anymore. They don't send you product for free. And then if you sold a certain amount, you got gifts. So I've always loved technology. So I got a ring that had a watch on it.
Really?
So when I was like in 7th grade, you know, I had like a ring that told the time, but it's because I sold so many greeting cards. I was selling them at school, to family, my parents, they're sending it to their families.
So this has always been you.
Yeah, huh?
This is.
It is. You know, I rarely think about that because, and I'll get into this a little bit later. When you work in social services or social, you know, community services, it's not thought of as entrepreneurialism. But now it's called social innovation. But back in the day, if you want to really be an entrepreneur, you had to go into another arena, and you couldn't do it in social services. But man, you're right. It's who I was. I did it, and I loved it.
Right.
I kind of forgot about it until this discussion.
I've always in the people business. I always loved people, even back then, but never entrepreneurial.
You know, you came from a strong family. How do you think your affirming household and that environment positioned you for life?
You know, this is a great question, especially I'm older, have my own family.
Right.
You know, I look back and I'm blessed now, recognize I have a family household, which is extremely important.
Sure.
Having a father and a mother who I can relate to me differently.
Sure.
I think that was important. My parents, coming from the South, instilled the identity of Black culture in me, which a lot of people in the Midwest lose.
That's true.
Right? And so I think that's probably our problem, that we have that loose identity. We don't know our identity.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents being from the South, literally my dad left the South when he graduated from high school. The day he graduated, came up north, right to Gary, Indiana. So I had the culture of a Black identity. Mm-hmm. Always, like, I was one of the few Black kids over there, but I never thought my Blackness was less than anyone else. Like, I always had a Black identity, was very proud of my Black identity.
So you have to protect it or defend it sometime, but you never questioned it.
That's
really powerful.
Never wavered on my Blackness or my identity or, you know, ever.
Now, your parents must have had crazy work schedules because your dad was an attorney, your mom worked in social services. Mm-hmm. Your mom and my sister, sorority sisters, but they worked together years ago. Were they able to get off to get to your games? I guess the games are in the evening, so were they able to catch some of your sporting events?
That's good, man. That's a really good question. So I say yes. My dad, I started staying home by myself in 3rd grade. So I stayed all.
Now, are you an only child?
Nope. I have a younger brother.
Okay.
Marcus.
Gotcha. That's right. I forgot about that.
He's 7 years younger than me.
Okay.
But I stayed home by myself in 3rd grade. So I used to take myself to go to practice and, you know, ride my bike down to Warner Park and basketball. But my dad, give my dad credit. My dad went to every football game, every basketball game. And I was I was on basketball before there was an AAU.
Oh, sure.
I was like on one of those few teams in Wisconsin that traveled everywhere in Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm. And
we were everywhere. My dad every weekend was with me. Every weekend.
Man, that's great.
Yeah.
I had a chance. I was at an Alzheimer's event was it last year, a couple years ago, and I sat at a table with your parents, and they cracked me up. I was asking them questions about you, but you know, even sitting with them just gave me a better understanding of you and your upbringing.
Yeah.
Just because of the strength, their connection, their communication, the sense of just identity, and just being rooted and grounded. Just very, you know, a level of confidence. I wish that more kids got exposed to that, either through mentors in their own homes or as teachers or whomever. But I just sense that, and that's important. And I love the fact that you're saying you appreciate it now even more as a parent.
More now, especially you have your kids, and you actually, when you start getting in the community, so a lot of these other young kids are, and they don't have the family structure, or if they have a family that's dysfunctional. I never had that. I had a strong father and as you know, my mama is strong.
Right.
And they never, how they treated us, how they raised us, the standards was always very consistent. We couldn't disrespect people. My mom said, be home before dark, you be home for dark. Like, there was a consistent thing. Oh, yeah.
Be on that porch before that light came on.
And they meant it, right? My dad, like, if you're going to fight, you fight. You hit first, you hit last. Like, you want to fight, you fight, right? Stand up for yourself.
Sure.
Right? You know, they used to instill in me, you're not any less than anyone else, but you're not better than anyone else. My parents, I look back on it now, you know, it's
sure.
I was blessed to have the parents I have.
But I bet you can look back, Henry, and see where your father, I'm sure your mother too, but your father probably cheered for other young boys on your team who didn't have folks. I think like one of my passions, one of the things I've studied is fatherlessness, because I grew up with a single parent household, but my mom was very strong. But I had uncles and friends and mentors who stepped in. I had folks like your dad
all the time
who would cheer and say things. And I think when I talk about fatherlessness, I don't just mean dads who are not in the homes. I mean dads who are not in the communities because of systemic reality, because of choices they made.
Yeah.
But we used to have those folks who would, you Southside Raiders, the different teams, you had those men who were in your corner who didn't have father figures. I mean, who didn't have fathers. They became the father figures
of the community.
And the community.
I was speaking at a church last week, and they were telling my black experience, and I said, here's the difference between the black culture now versus when I was younger. So I was this is a true story. So I was down in Vera Court, and I was out there being bad, not being bad, but being a kid. Being a kid, and I think I was cursing, doing some young stuff, right? And so a black man came out. His name is JJ, and he came out, a tall brother.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Hey, come here." He said, "Hey, come here, boy." He said, "Did I hear you just swear?" I said, "Yeah, so what if I did? What you gonna do about a black man? What you gonna do about it?"
Wow.
All my friends out there
Sure.
looking at me. So I'm like, what you gonna do about it? He said, you do it again, I'm gonna whoop your butt. I said, you ain't gonna do nothing. He closed the door, went in, came back out. He said, I got someone on the phone for you. I said, who you on the phone? He said, it's your mama. I said, oh, Lord. I'm like, how do you know my mom? My mom got on the phone and said, son, what this man's about to do to you, I told him he could do to you. And if I hear it again, I'm coming down there myself. Click.
He wore you, or JJ wore you. He took your belt off or a switch?
It was a switch.
Go give me something to beat you with, boy.
He went and got a switch. Right in the record, got a switch. He held in his hand in front of everyone. He said, do we have had this problem again? I said, no, sir, I apologize. He said, okay. And he walked inside.
That was community.
And that's the difference, right? So that's what I'm saying. It was at that point in time. Now, if someone tried to do that today, oh, come on.
Right.
Come on, right? So that was the difference between having black fathers back then around the community. And my dad used to bring people people that have money. My dad would bring money in, feed them. I mean, my house was always having people.
Sure.
We're the middle class black folks. We had a house, right?
Right.
So my dad.
But you were the gathering place.
We're the gathering place. We're the
okay.
gathering place. So we feed them, come, go. My dad would give people money all the time. There's this young man named Andrew who got in some trouble, and he was going to social services. And he said, they asked him, what do you want to do? Who do you want to be when you grow up? He said, I want to be like Mr. Sanders. I wish he was my dad. I'll never forget that.
Wow.
And so my dad was like, he was a father in the community, which I mean, not to recognize at the time.
No.
But now look back.
That's a powerful thing.
Yeah. My mom was the same way.
You touched upon this a little bit because you said you never questioned your blackness. But I'm curious. I'll just ask this just more specifically. Did growing up in a predominantly white environment force you to dream more broadly about how to create systems where you're not so outnumbered, or did it stifle your dreaming?
Yeah, this is good. This is the question. Now, this is what changed my career. This is what changed my life. Is growing up in Madison and figuring out that I didn't want Madison to pigeonhole me to being the black guy.
And yes,
right. And so when I was working at Vera Court Community Center, there was this politician that came around, this white woman. I forget her name. She was the older woman. And she was talking to us like we were dogs. Like she was just talking to us. And I remember telling myself, that would never happen again. Who is this woman that she has so much power? And everyone's like deferring to her.
And just talking to you like that.
Just talking like, I'm like, who is that? I didn't even know the older woman. What's an older person? What did they do? So then I said, okay. So then what I did was I called Kirby Mack. Anthony Brown, Dr. Brown. And I called Dr. Brown. I said, Dr. Brown, can I come work for you? He said, son, I don't have no nothing. I said, I'll come work for you for free.
Did you really?
Yes. He said, okay, we'll come out. He said, for free. I said, I'll come out there. I said, it's the only thing I ask for is let me follow you. Whatever you do, I want to do. Whatever you do. So I was doing paper, my Dr. Brown, he dressed nice. He took me. So I would just follow him. And so then out of that, I got a job with Kirby Mack in the affirmative action department.
Oh, all right.
Okay. And so then I got a job with Kirby. And Kirby is a bad woman, man. Like, Kirby is one of the most talented. I've been around a lot of talented women and CEOs in general. Kirby, by far, is one of the most talented, competent, confident mentors and leaders I've been around.
You've consistently said that to me.
And I've been around them all, bro.
She's on my nonprofit board, and she's one of the leaders in our church. She's class act.
The truth, right?
Yes.
And so I was there, but I remember it's like it was yesterday. The Isthmus did this story on Kirby.
Yes.
On the front page.
Yes.
And it was like, who was Kirby Mack? And it was something like that. I was taking shots at Kirby for hiring black people.
Right.
It was typical Madison stuff. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to let Madison pigeonhole me being a black guy, right? And so I made this list of 25 people. I remember like it was yesterday. 25 people I wanted to meet. But I said, I'm going to meet people I don't know, like white people, whatever. I met Neil Heinen through that, Nino Amato, Lamar Billups. Just went through the list calling people, meeting them. Out of that, I got a job. Tammy Baldwin calls me.
That's how you got connected?
When
she was Congresswoman?
By meeting people. And so going back to your original question was, I knew right away, like, okay, I'm not going to let people pigeonhole me being the black guy in Madison. That's not going to happen. That is not going to happen. So I started networking. I got a call from Tammy Baldwin. I had no idea who she was.
That was an entrepreneurial act. I mean, what you did, that's outside the box. That was a very bold act.
But that's there's pros and cons being a black guy in Madison. Or a black person in Madison. The downside is you can get lost because there's not people who can echo you and confidently push you up. The flip side is you learn how to survive. You learn how to adapt.
Yes, you do.
And you learn how to be an ambassador, meaning you learn how to deal with different people and different backgrounds.
You learn to be a bridge builder.
You have to.
You become bicultural.
Yes, you have to. And that skill takes me, it's one of the best things I've learned from Madison. I take that anywhere I go. And people look at me like, where are you from?
Even internationally. Yes. When I'm in places like Cambodia, where I'm the only person who looks like me in what feels like an entire country or region, it's no different than being, in Beaver Dam fishing. Because I grew up, fishing. My mom went to garage sales. But you're right. It's a skill that, a transferable skill that kids who are experiencing Madison have got to understand. If you do it right, it'll help you.
It'll totally help you. I mean, it opens up doors for me. People are like, how do you can walk in a room where you're only black? I don't know. I've been my whole life. So if I'm in a room with all Latinos, it doesn't bother me. If I'm all Hmong, it doesn't bother me. If I'm all right, it's a skill that I've learned that Madison helped create in me. So that's the upside of being in Madison.
No, man, that's a really good point. We need more people like Dr. Brown and Miss Kirby to pull people up. We need them in those positions so that they can do it. My wife Jackie and I started dating in college. Frank Humphrey gave her a job he got her a job at UW System. She was an intern. She became a policy analyst. She then started editing the system-wide newsletter that was called Spectrum. And when we got engaged, she was only working part-time. She went and told her boss, I need a full-time job. I'm getting married. But I can name you 2 or 3 women who are in summer enrichment programs, and someone like Frank got them plugged into state and government jobs. Right. So I hear what Dr. Brown did for you with Miss Kirby. We need folks in those positions so they can pull us in, because that was a game changer for my family, for my wife, and it seemed like it was a game changer for you.
It changed my whole life. I mean, Dr. Brown brought me in. He didn't have to bring me in. He brought me in. So I worked for free, but he spent time with me. He showed me around. He took me around. He took me to the Madison Club for the first time, which I thought was like the biggest thing in the world.
Right.
He was dressed up. I mean, there's little things as a kid, and I was 20-something, but they change your whole perspective, right? I mean,
we need more folks like that, man. The thing about it is they kick the door open for you, but you know how to act when you got in. I think that's one place you and I very similar, that I know how to act. Like I've been there before. I may need help getting into a place like Madison Club.
Yeah.
I remember people taking me there. I didn't have a black person who took me, but a white person took me in my 20s. Right. And I'm on their board now, but it started from someone saying, hey, let's come into Madison Club. And my first time, I didn't have a jacket. So they looked at me and they said, sir, you look like you're about a 40 regular. Come here. I said, why is he giving me why do they have all these blazers here? And I never forgot, like, okay, you can't come here without, they let me slide without the tie, but they put a jacket on me. But even that was a part of understanding
different cultures,
different culture, and how to do what's appropriate.
Right.
And it's a great teaching moment. So man, you're doing so many things. You worked in the Small Business Administration under President Obama's administration. Then you launched Madison365, and you and I talked about that. And so this was an idea for an online magazine, an online newspaper, just drawing people in. And man, it's just blowing up. You got listeners all outside of Madison. You came in on that bubble of using the internet for getting news out. You don't have the overhead of printing. What's been your greatest joy in being social media and a communications professional? What's been your greatest surprise?
Well, I think the greatest surprise is, one, I think how the white media responded to me in the beginning, based all of them telling me it wouldn't work. All of them. And saying, or it'd be a niche. You'd be a niche like, you guys reach 20,000 people at best. We on a slow month, 750,000, high month, 1.8 million. And that's just our Madison365, not including Fox Valley 365.
And how does that compare to print market circulation?
Like,
local.
Yeah. So I don't want to name any names, but say there's two local media out here. One was
we can talk Frank here. You can.
Yeah, I don't want.
Okay, I
don't want to put him on blast, right? Because one just gave me an award last night too. So, but one they might reach 40,000 people. They say they reach 40,000 people a month, or one might say reach 90,000 people a month. But how they do it is differently, right? So how they'll say is, if I have a magazine, I'll put it in here in this office, and because I know there's 10 people working in this office, that means 5 people are touching it, right? They're guessing. In other words, on media, what we do is we can measure. I can say, this person came to our site at this time, and they came to Facebook at this time, at this location, like this demographic.
Because you can measure hits, downloads, everything, all that.
Engagement, like we can measure in ways. So when we give you numbers, our numbers are reals. Their numbers are inflated. And I'm not knocking this, it's the method to use, right?
So, I'm asking.
So our numbers compared to local media, like we're playing in a different ball game. We're just different. To be respectful, we're
sure. So how old is Madison365? 6 years? Almost 6?
No, 4 years. It'll be 4 years.
4 years. Man, that's amazing. But then you've also launched something recently called Selfless Ambition, where you're really wanting to really show the servant leader's heart, the heart of Christ, outside of church walls. And so there are a number of educational support programs, that you're doing. That's so different than creating a chamber for the Latino community or for young Black businesses. So tell me about the swing from doing things that are, entrepreneurial. I think it's still entrepreneurial and and still showing your desire to be an advocate. But
I think for me it's very consistent because the consistent thing is solving problems. Right?
Gotcha. I like that.
So I see entrepreneurship as solving problems.
Sure.
And then how you connect dots.
I like that.
So I think that's how I view things. And it's also serving and helping people, right? So like the African American Black Chamber of Commerce, Madison Black Professionals, Magnet was all about a problem. We can't attract young professionals. Okay, what do you do to build it? What do you build a model to make a sustainable model to help young professionals? We need an African American, we need a Black Business Association. How do we get more Black businesses? Let me start a model around that to connect people. So it's always a problem, that connected problem. So everything I do is from that lens of how do I solve this problem, but how do I make sustainable models around it to make it sustainable,
so that it doesn't just go away because you're focusing on other things. Right. So like a true entrepreneur or a specific entrepreneur, you can start things and not necessarily be at the helm always for it to run and operate.
Yeah,
but you try to put systems underneath it that doesn't require your complete attention.
Sometimes God puts in place to be a catalyst, right?
Sure.
And so the catalyst, like selfless ambition, for example, I did that because I was going to all the schools and the teachers were saying we can't find volunteers. And then they're like, well, we can't find, we need food, etc. And so there's the faith side of me, as you know, I love me some Jesus.
Right.
So that side of me was like, okay, my faith side tells me to do this, but the pragmatic side of me was saying, well, if they need volunteers and they need diverse volunteers, where would you get the most diverse volunteers? The church. It's not rocket science. It's the church. Well, if you need funding for people to give, for people who actually care about food and service, where would you go to? The church, right? And so it was a pragmatic side of it too. It's saying, okay, my faith is saying this is what God tells us we should do, but we already have a built-in audience who's built for that, right? So you just go to the churches. So now, like last year we partnered with Starbucks, iHeartRadio, Metcalf's. We gave over 1,000 gifts away free to students. We do a night to remember special needs prom where 400 kids with special needs come at Monona Terrace for free. They get tuxes, dresses. We dress them up, limo rides, all that. Now
really, limo rides?
Yeah, bro, you should come. It's May 5th. At Monona Terrace. We need volunteers. You should come. We do put food pantries in schools. We had one at Glendale. They have 509 students there. We fed 400 some in 1 month. I mean, so this is just from God and the church, right? But again, that's just, so self-ambition is my way of trying to help the most vulnerable. And Madison365 and Fox Valley 365 is about giving access to communities who don't have a voice.
So folks outside of Wisconsin, because we have people listening all over, what communities are you talking about when you say Fox Valley 365? I'm really proud of that. But
so Green Bay, that's northeast Wisconsin.
Sure.
So it's like Green Bay, Appleton, Wisconsin, Fond du Lac, and Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
What's the combined population of the Fox Valley?
That's a good question.
I would say a couple 100,000.
Yeah, about 400,000 probably.
See, that's a big audience. Henry, that's some great work, man.
Yeah.
That's in 4 years to do that.
Yeah, and our first month of Fox Valley reached 42,000 people. So that's already bigger than anyone else there in that market.
Man, that's amazing.
Yeah,
in a valley that's known for making paper, and then you're bringing news without paper.
Right.
That's
what I
kind
learned
of
about
interesting.
Fox Valley though? Here's the difference between Fox Valley and Madison. The corporate America up there, they understand that they don't know what they don't know, and they know it's the issue that they have to deal with.
That's interesting.
So Madison is a little different, right? So we have people here in Madison, they think they know what they don't know.
Sure.
Right? And so
they're certain they know what they don't know.
Right. And they will tell you that you don't know what you're talking about your community.
Yes.
Right?
They'll have you questioning yourself.
Yes, if you let them, right? If you let them. And so it's really interesting to me to hear how Fox Valley operates. I've met with the top 35 CEOs of Fox Valley. All of them had a meeting and I came and spoke with them. All of them are excited and want to help. It's unbelievable. We're going to make more money in Fox Valley
than in South
Madison.
Central Wisconsin.
Yeah, no question. We're going to do more up there than here because they're more receptive up there than here. It's the most interesting thing.
That's interesting. What's been your favorite job of all the ones you've held?
What I'm doing now.
Okay.
Because I'm free, meaning that I really believe I'm doing what God's called me to do, to serve people in different ways and using my entrepreneurial skills to solve problems.
Sure.
And I dictate the pace I go, and I dictate how I run and what I do. And my family is extremely important to me, so I can also have freedom for my family and spend time with my wife and my kids. And so I have a great balance. I dictate how I want to do it, and I set my pace. And no one can define to me what success is, not success is. Money is a success. We're doing better financially than most media outlets. I get that, and we're reaching more people. But success to me is also helping people, and so no one can. I'm setting that tone.
Got you. That's good. In your opinion, what's currently the greatest barrier to Black economic development or wealth creation? And I know in your role in overseeing small business development for Region 5, I think it was, you have to look at all small businesses. But we talk a lot about social services and preventative services and intervention in our community, but there's not a whole lot of talk about true economic development, Black wealth development. I'm just curious if you've given some thought to what some of the greatest barriers might be for more African Americans.
I think right now it's a lack of hope for Black folks, a lack of not seeing, and a lack of confidence in knowing and having the skill sets and resources to do what they need to do. Right. I think.
You said hope.
Lack of hope.
So sense of hope, not having aspiration, lack of role models. And I'm sorry, what was the third one you said?
Lack of resources.
Okay, I was going to ask you about the resources to make it happen.
And so Black folks are entrepreneurial by nature.
Right.
And people don't, I explained this to my friend at the chamber. No, we are entrepreneurial. If a Black person, young kid can say, I want to be Jay-Z, that's entrepreneur. That's taking a risk. How many Jay-Z's are in the world? Right, that's entrepreneur. If they want to be an athlete, they're taking a risk, right? Like they're saying, "I'm good enough to take this risk and do this." Right? But that's the only path they've seen. We haven't told young people. Like I would love somebody younger when I was younger to say, "Hey, Henry, do you ever think about being an entrepreneur? Like, what does that mean? Like, what does that?" So I think we don't educate our folks about what it means to be an entrepreneur and give them the skill sets, and we don't have people who actually sit down and talk to. I don't care if you're white, Black, whatever, who are actually sitting down and mentoring these kids and giving them the opportunity to move up. So I just think we don't see it. And the practical side of it, to be an entrepreneur, you have to take risk. And to take risk you have to have money, or someone who, like, if someone fails, where you gonna go?
Right.
Right. So if an average white guy who's being entrepreneurial, I'm not saying I'm generalizing, but they fail, they can go back to get another job, go live with mom and dad. A lot of black folks can't do that. And data backs us up. Like like black folks are middle class, they fall faster than anyone else, right?
So for you saying taking a risk doesn't mean just throwing all caution to the wind. It's having the financial wherewithal to have a backup plan so that if this doesn't work, you can go back to a job or have some place to live. So I'm hearing you say that a lot of African Americans don't have that, like some of our white counterparts.
Right, exactly. So I would say, if I was someone's asking me today, I say take calculated risk by diversifying your opportunities. Meaning, if you work for the state, that's the perfect time for you to start a little entrepreneurial business on the side, right? You have a stable job,
right,
and you start diversifying revenue. And it's one thing that we can do is take risks to diversify our revenue opportunities when we have a stable job. Right?
Exactly.
So that's the time to take a risk.
You can finance your own risk.
Right. You can finance your own thing. Like for me, I started Madison365 while I was still in the Obama administration.
Sure.
Right. I started when I was there as a nonprofit. Let me just see. Right. Let me just see what happens. It worked. Maybe it wouldn't have, but I took that risk while I was there. So for black folks, I say when you have the opportunity, when you have a job that you're set in, that is a time to take that calculated risk to diversify, because then at least you have some stability. Now it's going to be work,
right?
You got to be more disciplined about your time, but that's where my faith comes in. You have to have faith. Either you can do it or you can't.
So you're saying it's okay to have a boss in order to not be your own. It's okay to have a boss in order to become your own boss. Right. Because you and I grew up in this community where we remember examples like Al Studesville.
Yeah.
He worked for Madison College, but we all knew he and Jan owned Just Nails.
Right.
But he didn't just leave his job, at Madison College, at MATC, to run his business. He was able to leverage that. And I think that's a great example that people don't look at.
Ray Allen.
Right, Ray Allen. Right. Exactly. Don't hate your day job if it finances your risk and your ability.
Exactly.
Right. Don't be patient. Don't just think you just walk off your job, then you're going to create something. Right. You're going to create a mess.
Right. Diversify revenue, and then,
I like that.
Diversify your revenue opportunities. It's the smartest thing you can do.
That is really great. Do you think that people are more entrepreneurial or less entrepreneurial today than our parents and grandparents
More
were?
Entrepreneurial.
Because of technology?
I think technology. I think you have more kids today who want to be more independent. I think because of the lack of family structure, that's not as family structure. So people are trying to live on their own, trying to survive. And so you're trying to survive, you're trying to figure out how do
necessity is pushing it.
Right? And so I think today people are much more entrepreneurial, of trying to be entrepreneurs in their own business. People build their own wealth. Yeah, I think today's easy.
So how do you measure your success personally? Like, what do you look at and say that's what makes me successful? Not in other people's estimation, but in yours.
This is always hard for me to answer if people are not people of faith. Right?
Sure.
So if you're atheist or agnostic, you're not going to understand what I'm about to say. But as a man of God, I think anytime I can pray and have peace with God about what I'm doing, and I'm following what Jesus is telling me to do, to serve and love other people, and I can see it's fruitful. What I mean it's fruitful, meaning I'm seeing it's people are being helped, and there's life being there. Mm-hmm. To me, that's successful. And if I can balance that while still making sure my family is breathing and healthy, and they know what dad and my wife know what her husband looks like, to me that's success. And so it's God and how me and God, how we do this.
Sure.
thing.
I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah.
What has been the price of your success?
No one's ever asked me that question. That's a question that make me want to cry. I think success is people look at you differently. Mm-hmm. People make opinions of you, comment that they don't know you. I think when you're successful, it means you have to focus, and so you have to let some things go that you might like, or people you like.
Say that one again.
Right. So there's a lot of guys I grew up with and that I can't be friends with anymore because I'm just not doing the stuff they used to do. I can't relate to them in that way anymore, or I just don't have time because I have to focus on doing what God's commanded me to do. Right.
Sure.
So that, I think losing friendships is hard.
That is a hard one.
I think that's hard. I just think that in time, right? So the success, you don't have the leisure time as you used to have, right? So everything is more intense, and everything's more high stakes. So every decision is more There's more at stake, especially if you have a business where people's livelihoods are dependent on what you do, right? You're feeding people,
Right.
Or people are giving you money, and you have to make sure that you come through what you say you're going to do with their money. Though it's just more high stakes, right? So I think you have to learn how to sacrifice a lot of relationships, a lot of people. I love people.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I have a saying like drop them off to Jesus. Some people have to drop off to Jesus and just keep moving, right? And so that's hard for me. It's really hard for me to tell people I just can't deal with you right now. It's real hard.
Right.
And it's family time. I mean,
it is a commitment.
It's a commitment. Like one thing I question about Martin Luther King all the time, who I love, Dr. King. He sacrificed his family, and
in a lot of ways.
I'm not willing to do that, right? So those are things that come to my mind.
Sure. And we need models of helping us to do that, because if you're trying to change the world the way he did, I mean, who or what was his example of how you do that? Because he came from a line of 3 or 4 generations of preachers, but they weren't doing what he was doing. So who do you look to? And that's the downside of being entrepreneurial. Right. Who do you look to for balance? And you're right. Like I saw people not. I saw someone who I thought was very gifted, and I listened to him having a conversation with his son, who said that he had gotten a bunch of points, in a basketball game, and he said, son, I got to catch one of your games, and you got a kid getting 26 points, even if they're not getting 26 points, but the fact that your kid is like a junior in high school, you've never been to a single game, I just said, that's not what I want.
Right, exactly.
That's not what I want.
But you made a good point. I think one of the things is being black and being one of the first to do.
Right.
If you look at my path, I'm one of the first to do a lot of things. Right?
Yes.
Even Lieutenant Governor, the first African American ever do that. Right. So the first in the door, the first to get shot. Right. So I think part of the sacrifice is doing things first, and that's kind of lonely sometimes, right? Because people don't get it always at the time. The people usually get it later, but when you're doing it, people are looking at you like you're crazy.
But Henry, when you say people don't get it, there's two ways of people not getting it. There's certain things I don't get, like I don't get quantum physics. I don't even try to I don't get that. Let me move on to something else. Mm-hmm. But then there's some things we don't get, and then we try to make assumptions. First one in the door, first one getting shot. People who don't get it also make assumptions about entrepreneurial people without even understanding the price, the risk, the pressure, the sleepless nights, the early mornings. So many times when people don't get something, they try to put a label and slap it on it. Right. And that doesn't help the entrepreneur either, but you've got to learn to not succumb to those labels.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you've been able to do that.
You have to have a self-identity. Like you have to know why you're doing it. So that's why I'm not going to come back to God, but that what motivates me. That's my why. Sure. Right. So people have to figure out what motivates them. My why is God. And under that, family falls into that. What's why? So now I'm trying to figure out, like you asked what I'm sacrificing, my health. Like I gained so much weight over these years trying to change the world. So now I'm finally getting in a place now where I'm like, okay, I just start taking care of myself. Sure. Health. I got kids. And so, those type of things you sacrifice. But I had to put that health in the why. It wasn't clicking before. So now I'm like, okay, why? Well, God, you gave you the family, so now you got to take care of your family. So always I figure out why you're doing what you're doing. Because for me, if I don't have a why, I can't connect it. It won't mean anything to me.
Hey, I've got one more question, man. This time is going by so fast. I think I've asked you more questions than any other guest, because I see you as a Renaissance man that wears so many hats. But you answer these things so succinctly that it gives me a chance to move on to the next one. So you've worked with politicians, for politicians. You worked as a governmental bureaucrat. You've run for political office. You've helped advocate for small businesses. You now run a media and communications business. What's next?
I think expansion. Again, as 365 grows, whether Fox Valley, I see us growing at probably some 2020. I think we'll see another launch somewhere in Wisconsin.
Great.
I think we'll become a Midwest entity. We have 20% of reach from Chicago, 8% Twin Cities.
That's great.
So we'll become a Midwest entity. I think we'll start doing other things from a branding, marketing perspective, helping companies. Sure. We'll become a true media organization, not just from a content perspective. So we'll do other than that. We'll really grow that. And I think I'll start doing, doing more, speaking the word a little bit more. So
Got you. So we've seen people who have been communications moguls throw their hat in the ring for politics or political things. That is that a thing of the past right now?
No.
You can neither confirm nor deny.
No, I would never go back to politics ever again, ever.
You found your niche.
I found my niche, but I also was close. When you're close enough to politics, I've been. You know how the sausage has been made. I think good people go into politics, but I think the system is not good. And so, if you really want to solve problems and help people, politics is not the way to do it, because you get caught up in a machine that controls you either way it goes. Even if you don't want, if you can go in and be a really, really good person, but it can beat you down and eat you up if you want to survive in that system. I don't want to survive in that system. I want to thrive and be fruitful. And I can do that outside. I can be more impactful outside of politicians. I'm actually have more influence in a political system now than I did when I was in it.
Got you. That's very interesting. I've been in this community as a professional for 30 years. I've had people seriously approach me about considering some political aspirations. I have none because of the influence I can have in the community. And I understand, where my power is and where I really want to, where I want to navigate, where I'm feeling called as well. But it's interesting that as we begin to grow in our positional authority or in the efficacy of our work, you have to have the ability to say no to the temptations of moving in a direction that's not necessarily in alignment with your call. And I appreciate the fact that you said that, because I didn't know for sure, what might be next.
Never.
But the idea of expanding it and becoming a real media entity, I think that's very very
that
exciting.
excites me.
Man, it
That excites me.
should. Well, Henry, man, I really appreciate your time, because I know you're doing all of these things that you've been talking about, your own committees and teams and your fundraising. But I want you to know I really appreciate I'm a South Sider. He's a
North
Sider.
Say it slow though.
Say it slow. This school had ugly colors. They were called the Pergolders.
Best high school in the city.
That's right. No, we do all this stuff, but I have mad respect for you, because I can remember when your focus was not spiritually centered like it is now, or the manifestation of it wasn't that way.
Right. You were there. You were on the journey with me.
Man, I remember those talks. So I need you to know I message you a lot, but I really admire you, because sometimes people jeopardize their faith, as they grow, or they don't know how to integrate it. So I think that in making sure that folks, that we exhibit what servant leadership looks like. I love the fact that you're doing it as well, and that these things are important to you, because folks who have been experienced or exposed to the various arenas you have can easily just say, well, people just need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. So I like the fact that we know how to get in the trenches with people, behind the bars with people, in the gutters with people, in their pain and their tears. And that's really, really important. And that's an example that people need to have today. And I'm proud of the fact also that you've learned to use some of the isolation as one of the few African Americans. I remember being the only one or two in a class, and you've allowed that to make you a better bridge builder, a better negotiator, a better thinker. It keeps us a step ahead of our white counterparts, not trying to make it seem like we're at odds with each other. But I think we talk about the racial disparity in education now, but I think people forget folks like you and I sat in the same classrooms with professors' kids. And so you lived on the east side. You sat with kids from Maple Bluff. I sat with kids from Sherwood Hills. I sat with kids whose dads and moms were chairs of department. And so we wrote papers with these folks. We served in groups with them. So it wasn't like our schools educated the white people and not the black people. And so we now come of age where we've learned to think with some of the most brilliant thinkers, but we have not lost our cultural identity. So we always know how to bring we also know how to bring the shrewdness or the historic entrepreneurialism of our tradition, of our people, of our families. And I think that really sets us up to be strong servant leaders. And so as you're doing more talking and speaking, I hope that you continue to tell more of your story, because people know that people need to know that it's not either or. Right. There's a lot of downsides to being raised in Madison, but there's a lot of upsides. There are things that you're doing here, that I'm doing here, that I'm not sure if I'd be able to do in Chicago.
There's no question.
Or Cleveland. And so we've learned those fine lines. We've learned those distinctives. And most days we've maintained our sanity. Every day we maintain our faith, although people try to. I had a meeting today that just, made me want to forget I was a preacher and just say some things, because a child was hurt real badly, and I felt like we were acting slowly. The organization was acting very, very slowly. But with all of that, you've chosen to keep those skills and your families here in this community. So my challenge to you, please, is to take care of yourself, the whole health thing, because we need you. Too many of our leaders have not been around because they've advocated for others, they've served others, but they didn't advocate for themselves. So I just want to encourage you to do that. You are a gift to our community, a treasure to our community, that's recognized for a number of things, but I don't think people always see the cost and the price and the journey. And I've witnessed all of those in your growth and your maturity and that trajectory. And I just have mad respect for you and for what you're doing. So your mom and dad did an excellent job with you. Please tell them that I said that. And I know your wife and your children share you with the community and the region, and I appreciate that. And I hope this is not our last time sitting down and talking on Black Like Me.
You'll come on our show? Will you come on our show?
If I get the invitation. I mean, you didn't keep the door down. I invited you. If you invite me.
You'll come?
Haven't I come before when you've invited me?
Southside, a little scared of us Northsiders. We a little too
actually,
real for you.
Actually, I live in Fitchburg. I live in Fitchburg now.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, you got quiet on that one. You're still in Wanakee, right? You still in Wanakee. Yes, okay. And on that note,
I live in Wanakee. I'm trying to get away from people like you. That's
man, Lord help them, Jesus, help them, Jesus, come get your people. I think we might have to edit that one out, Eli. No. My guest on Black Like Me has been Mr. Henry Sanders, entrepreneur, advocate, past political bureaucrat, former lieutenant governor, candidate, and a plethora of things. Share this podcast with your folks. You know people that can relate to it or who need to relate to it. So continue to help us to get the word out. Thank you so much for being a part of the Black Like Me podcast family. And I look forward to talking with you again real soon.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast. You can find out more about Dr. Alex G's amazing work at www.alexg.com. Black Like Me is sponsored by the generosity of the Human Family Unity Foundation.